So this one's an interesting video. Would I drive for Uber if reactivated in 2019? If this is the first time that you and I are meeting, my name is Mike, and I drove for Uber originally in October of 2015 in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania market. I drove part-time for years for the company and was making some really good money in 2016 especially. Then I experienced a few rate cuts in 2017 and of course changes to the algorithm and to the overall platform. Over the years, they've extended their background check process and now deem that I am no longer able to drive for Uber versus all the other years that I was approved to drive on the platform. The question here is, if reactivated, which actually is still an option, would I even drive in 2019? The answer to that question really isn't cut and dry. So let me give you a few reasons why I would drive and why I wouldn't drive, even if given the chance. If allowed to drive for Uber, this would give me another option in this gig economy, in this side hustle economy, where you're downloading these apps, you're using your phone and typically your vehicle to make some extra cash. Currently, I mainly do delivery runs across a couple of apps. And if you see across the channel, we've actually done a few other things in the gig economy, but really no rideshare as of now. Now, if I was allowed to drive for Uber, this would give me another option for an income stream. Another reason why I would drive for Uber would be the availability of high pay incentives or very busy events, which would in turn pay me more as a driver. In the past, in 2015, 2016, even 2017, Uber paid their drivers based on the traditional surge algorithm, which was a surge multiplier. With this older platform, it was based on a supply and demand of more passengers needing a ride and less drivers to serve those rides. So the passengers would pay the surge or the fare multiplier, a 2x, a 3x, or a 4x, and then the driver's pay was subsequently multiplied as well. That system's since changed. They no longer use a surge multiplier. Instead, now there's what's called the upfront surge. Basically, this is a upfront amount, a bonus that will get added to the fare amount. So as a driver, let's say your run is $15, maybe the upfront surge is an additional $7. So for me, it would only be worth it to drive for Uber during those high demand times when Uber was offering that upfront surge that made sense, that paid me more than a base run. Another reason why I would drive on the Uber platform is that it actually would get me access again to delivering on the Uber Eats platform. From what I found is driving on Uber Eats actually paid quite well, sometimes paying more than rideshare. And lastly, if I was reactivated on the Uber platform, in general, it is a relatively easy and relatively low effort way to get some extra income. So now let's talk about why I would not drive for Uber even if they gave me the chance. Number one, there's just too low of base pay. Uber's definitely decreased the rates for drivers, especially when I first started in 2015. And that's a continued trend across the entire country in general. So if I was not getting any of that upfront surge or pay incentives, any kind of bonuses, I really wouldn't want to drive just the regular rates, aka the base fare. And then going back to the different systems of the old surge multiplier versus the now upfront surge pricing, especially for longer trips, drivers are going to make less money on the upfront surge versus that older multiplier. And a lot of the strong earnings that I was seeing as an Uber driver, I was driving part-time and it was exclusively nights and weekends. We're talking those bar hours, the club hours. And that's when the surge algorithm would really give me a consistent 2x, a 3x, or 4x on the surge multiplier. So that system's changed, however. So I would no longer get the surge multiplier. I would have to rely on the upfront surge. And especially for the longer trips, I would actually be making less money compared to those longer trips on the old surge platform. Number three, there's more and more drivers on the road. You know, when I was driving in Pittsburgh in 2015, it was still catching on in the market. Drivers were signing up, and it was definitely picking up steam with the passenger pool. But from the years since, the years and years, more and more people, basically everyone knows about this driving opportunity now, is there's just more drivers on the road. So even if we did have that upfront surge, that just the algorithm, it's not going to reward drivers in the same way that it did in 2015 and 2016. And it's really the track record from Uber of decreasing and further decreasing pay for drivers. For instance, when I first started driving in Pittsburgh, it was $1.20 per mile. And that was actually reduced all the way to 90 cents per mile. And a lot of drivers just refused to drive at those rates. So much so that Uber had to revise that price decrease and increase prices to $1.05 per mile. So current day here in San Diego, rates per mile are 87 cents per mile and 30 cents per minute. And I just can't make sense of those numbers. I wouldn't want to be on the road, especially with the traffic here a lot of the times, working at the 87 cents per mile, and now without some kind of pay incentives or again, the upfront surge. And lastly, something that hasn't changed is the wear and tear on your vehicle. Now, if you're using a newer vehicle on a rideshare platform, let's say 3 years or newer, you're really going to be accelerating the depreciation on that vehicle. You can easily put another 10,000, 20, 30,000 plus miles in a year on that vehicle. So now all of a sudden, instead of being that average driver that has 10, 15,000 miles in the year, you have 40,000 or 50,000 miles in a single year. That can certainly change. That's not set in stone. It depends if you're driving part-time, just here and there, or full-time, of course. And for me, that just doesn't make sense for my current vehicle, considering the wear and tear. Now, not unless the benefit outweighs the cost. And again, there were some changes to the pay. So what's my overall verdict? If I was reactivated and allowed to drive on the Uber platform, would I? Perhaps surprisingly, actually I would, but only under those right circumstances that we talked about today. Some good pay incentives or a higher upfront surge. The actual operations of driving for Uber are actually decently pleasant. Interacting with the passengers, exploring the city and the places, talking to passengers about restaurants and attractions. I really enjoyed that. That was really exciting. It was fun. It was neat to meet some people and just explore the city. So the actual operations part of Uber and rideshare, I would enjoy. I just need the other half, the other real half of that equation to make sense, and that's the pay. So let me know down in the comments if you're deactivated from Uber, or maybe you know someone that was deactivated from Uber and you were allowed back on the platform. Would you drive? Would you not drive? And under what circumstances? Your driver Mike here. I do appreciate you watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to join your driver team, and I will see you in the next one.